Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. We have a new kit fresh off the press, straight fresh off my mailbox too. The Airscale Pro Hawker Typhoon Mk.1B 132nd kit, and from what I can see, this kit looks absolutely amazing. It's got 3D printed parts and then some a injection molded fuselage and wings from what I can tell. And then just everything else. The artwork is some of the best artwork I have ever seen, and that's going online with Wingnut Wings and Qatari. So really nicely done by Airscale on the box art. You can get this poster and an actual poster if you order this kit. There is a separate charge to the poster, but you can also just order the poster if you want. We're going off to the side of the box art right here. We have one paint scheme, JP843 coated OV T197 Squadron right here. Then we flip over to the other side. We have the other one from R888 coated HFL of the 183 Squadron right there. So nice little sleeve type box right here, so you can pull that off. You can set that off to the side so it doesn't get damaged anymore when you're building. And a nice little flip box that has a little like magnet or something in it, so when you do it, it closes and it stays closed. I mean, you can hear the click right there and it stays closed. Nice little ribbon to pull the box open. And we pull it open and we're greeted by a nice instruction manual and then all the 3D printed parts and everything going on, which we're going to get into here in just a second. And then all the injection molded parts right here with a nice little like cutout of the Hawker right there as well. So very nicely done on the box. We're going to get straight into the instructions and decals right now. Just going off, we're going to open this up, set all this off to the side. It looks like we have a bunch of other goodies in that bag as well from Airscale that we're going to go through here in a second. The instruction booklet, I love the look of the old manual type instructions where they just have that old paper look to it. Looks like it's actually from World War II when you're looking at documents from back then, how the paper is kind of like old and brown. I really like when they do the detail on this on the instruction manuals. Kind of gets you into the mood for building one of these kits. So we're going to open it up and it's got a description or a history about the two subjects that we're going to be modeling on this, and then we have our decal or our parts call out on the 3D printed part blocks right through here, and then we have some more call outs for our 3D printed parts, and then it has a description of our cockpit area right here, and then how it's supposed to look when it is all said and done. Alright, moving right along, we have the cockpit construction going on. I will say that the instructions, the pictures do seem a little bit small. My eyesight is actually still pretty good after Uncle Sam paid for my eye surgery back 23 years ago. But, I mean, they do seem a little bit small, so that might be an issue. Definitely going to want to have your readers or your optivisor out for this, for looking at the pictures here. But I mean, from the detail, from what I can see, it's kind of, I will say it is kind of difficult to see where exactly these parts are going, just looking at it without the aided eye. But you do also have another part right here that shows where all the decals are, and that is fairly easy to see. And then you have some real pictures of the actual instrument panels going on, or the side panels going right there through there. So very nicely done on that. The one complaint I have is that the pictures here are a little bit small and a little bit hard to see. But that's a small complaint. Just take your time and really look into it, and it shouldn't be an issue. And again, we have more decals going on to the other side with some actual reference photos right next to that. And then we have more cockpit detail going on with our firewall. Then we have our seat belts going in, and you have a little description. So read the instructions right here. It'll really help out on that. Then again, more decals onto our throttle body right there, and then we have the option of a padded seat or an unpadded seat right there. Then adding in more parts, and then we're working on our instrument panel. We have decals going on there, a film that goes behind the instrument panels to show our dials, and then showing how our instrument panel is supposed to look with our control stick and everything going on. Alright, moving on, we have more instructions on the assembly of everything, getting everything in right there. And then we're moving on to our landing gear bay. We have some more parts to add in with some more decals. Then the front end of our landing gear door or landing gear bay. Another piece for our belly right there. Then we're adding in our intake going on there, and then we have some parts to add into our fuselage halves right there. Going on, again, reference photos galore. Getting our two fuselage halves together with our landing gear section and also our cockpit section, and then we're working on our wings. We do have options for guns as well for the early and late option for cannons with the shrouded or unshrouded cannons. Alright, now we're getting our wings on with our ailerons, and then our tail surfaces going on. Then we have our landing gear, our wheels, hubs, our struts, and also landing gear doors going on there. Let's see, then we're getting all that added in. We have some nice reference photos with that. Then we have some air vents going on here, and then more work on our tail wheel. Then we have some pitot tubes and footsteps going on there. Then we're working on our doors and the back plate or armor plate for our headrest, you could call it. And some more parts for our canopy, our car door for this kit. Then we're working on more canopy parts, our propeller, getting the propeller on, and now we're adding in some bombs to the kit, and that should be everything. Alright, so after that we have some decals going on left, right, top, bottom, right there. We do have a template for our windows because we do have acetate windows to go onto here, because I do believe that we just have the frames in 3D printed on this, so really gonna be nice and thin and accurate to scale. Alright, so now we're moving on with our markings. Again, this is for JP843 with the gray and green with kind of a greenish prop hub right here. Again, looking very nice. You can download the mask if you scan this QR code. If you have a silhouette cutter or a Cricut cutter or something like that, you can download the mask and you'll get the mask for all these letters and roundels and all that. So definitely I'm going to look into getting that when I do this kit. We do have our stripes. So these are not the D-Day invasion stripes. These are different. This is identification stripes to help prevent from blue on blue shoot downs, which I guess happened in the early days of the war. Alright, and then we're moving on to the next one. Again, a nice scheme with the half black, half white, or eggplant, whatever sky blue scheme or gray scheme that they had on the bottom. Again, you can get the mask with this QR code. Let's see. Again, I'm just not sure. I think I might go with this one when I do it. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with this one. I'll have to look into the history of it to see which one kind of intrigues me more on the history. But going on, we have a nice little bit about Airscale and some of the parts about the Typhoon as well. And then on the back side we have some nice actual photos of historic Typhoon car door right here. So again, very nice. Alright, we're going to start off with the decals right here. Decals, I can't see who they're printed by the Fantasy Print Shop. They do feel pretty nice. They might be a little bit on the thick side, but you can get the paint mask for all of these to get cut on a Cricut or Silhouette, which really makes the kit look a lot better when these decals, or when these are actually painted on. And then we have all the small decals for our instrument panels and everything going on there. So again, very nicely done on those. Alright, now we have some vinyl masks for our canopies right here. They are pre-cut, so they should fit fairly nicely. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of shrinkage in the vinyl. So I know some manufacturers have had issues with doing vinyl masks, where after a while the vinyl actually starts to shrink in between the cuts, and you start running into fit issues. But so far, I think because this kit is so new, we haven't started running into that issue yet. And hopefully in the future it won't have an issue with it. We'll have to see. But nice paint mask for our canopies right there. Then we have a nice little card for the Air Ministry Survival Guide right here. Oh, this is if you have an emergency, you email the info@airscale.co.uk and they'll get you taken care of. Alright, up next we have some brass rods. Not sure what this is for yet, but again, very nice, and have some nice cards. Oh, these are the brass inserts for our landing gear. So this is going to help strengthen our landing gear so we won't get any sag or anything years down the road after we build this kit. And then after that we have our acetate for our clear parts. It's clear, nice and thin on that. And then we have our seat belts. These are going to be in fabric with our photo etch buckles. So again, very nice. Takes a little bit of work and patience, but with these fabric seat belts, they do look so much better than photo etch seat belts. When you take your time and get this done, you can weather them with the oils of your fingers. From HGW, I've used seat belts like that, and they look so much better than the photo etch seat belts. Takes a little bit of time, patience. Definitely going to want to have your optivisors out and multiple pairs of tweezers. And if you have children that you don't want to have them hear cuss words, definitely do not have them in the area while you're working on this, because I will say there is a fluent amount of cuss words that come out of my mouth whenever I do this. I hate it when I'm doing it, but I absolutely love it after it's all said and done, because they, like I said, they look a cajillion times better than photo etch seatbelts. Alright, so now we're moving into the 3D printed parts. I'm going to get you zoomed in here. Hopefully you can see how detailed all these parts are. I can't cut the walls off because that's what's protecting it inside the box right now. But you can see inside, right now you can see all the detail, all the bolt detail, the cables, wiring, everything that's going on there. Looks like we might have one piece that broke off. I have to see where that one went. But again, just the level of detail with all these 3D printed parts and kits is the future of the hobby. And just, I'm still amazed on all the detail and the thinness and everything that we can get with these 3D printed parts. Alright, up next we have our exhaust right here. Right there, and also our propeller spinner hub and a couple other parts. Not sure exactly what they are, but the detail on them, all of our exhaust ports are hollowed out all the way. So those look very nice. And we also have some very small, I think those are our air scoops that are all the way down in there. You can see right there. Again, nicely done on that. Our next one is our other option for our exhaust. So we do have the covered and uncovered exhaust. Same thing, you can see the exhausts are completely hollowed out. It just looks so good. And then our radiator and intake right there. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but you can actually see the combing for the radiator molded into that. So again, very nicely done on both of this. And we have bolt detail and just very fine detail. Our lights, our navigation lights are molded in there as well, if you can see that. Again, very nice. And just gonna paint that with Molotov chrome pen and then put in some UV clear resin to get that light bulb effect really on that. So really looking forward to that. Alright, up next we have our landing gear bay. Again, once this is all cut off, you're gonna really be able to see the full on detail to it, but you can see how nicely detailed that is. I mean, even without this, the detail that you can see, or with this little bracket that we have here protecting it, you can still see the amount of detail that's in there. And when all the bracket is cut off, this is, I mean, this is going to be jaw-dropping beautiful. Right here, you can see all that. We have the supports going on, but the connection points through the supports do look very thin, so there shouldn't really be an issue to cut off on that. So again, very nicely done. Alright, so up next we have our bombs. Again, all one piece 3D printed. We're going to have the tails added onto that on the back side of it. Then our pylons for our bombs. Again, even the sway braces are molded in, and those are very thin. I don't know if you can see those, but again, and then on our ailerons we have some nice bolt detail on that. Our gun tubes right there, I can't tell if those are hollow. It looks like they are going to be. Nicely done on that. Some nice bolt detail. And honestly, I am not seeing the 3D print lines that you typically see. So this was printed at a very high resolution for the resin. So very nicely done. Alright, now we have our, looks like our framing for our windows and our car door right here. Hoping that will show up. As you can see. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not going to cut off the bracket that goes around it, or the cage that goes around it, because this cage is protecting it. If I was going to be building this immediately, I would be cutting these off, but I don't know when I'm going to get to this kit. Hopefully in the near future. Hopefully this comes up on the random generator that I have. But again, a lot of nice detail on here, inside and outside the car door. Alright, now we have our landing gear doors. Again, very nicely detailed. You can see the bolt detail through the bracket right there, but again, looking very nice. You can see right there. Then our tail wheel, or our wheel hubs right there. Again, nice. Alright, now we have our landing gear struts right here. You can see the hole that's in the middle. That's for those brass rods that go in. It's really going to help strengthen that. And then we have our tail wheel. We do have two different options for our tail wheel right here. So there's that. And then the last 3D print block here, really sorry for the camera adjustment. There's a lot of 3D print support blocking a lot of the detail. So really not going to be able to see much of this while it's on the block, but I'm sure that when it is off the block, the level of detail that's so far that we've seen in the rest of the 3D print blocks is just going to be absolutely amazing. And then when you add in all the other detail parts, you're really going to set this apart. You're really going to want to leave all the hatches and everything open so you can see all this detail that you're going to put into it on that. So again, very nice. Sorry, I was wrong. We have two more 3D print blocks to go off of. We have our rudder right there with our propellers going on. And then we also have our two wheels right here. Again, nice. They're the smooth type wheels. a little bit of sidewall detail on there. Again, very nicely done. And we have the wheel hubs that are going to go on. So painting these separately and then gluing in the wheel hubs, hopefully the wheel hub fit perfectly so we can actually paint them all separately and not have to worry about masking that off. Alright, so for the fuselage parts, he did injection molding on the wings and fuselage and everything, and the detail that's on here, the rivet detail, I'm hoping that the camera will pop that out, but that just for the underside of the wings, top notch stuff right there. On the detail with our ejection ports and everything on there. Then we flip it over to the other side. Now we don't have any locator pins on these wings, so definitely going to have to take time to get everything lined up and glued in correctly. Also, it does not look like the landing flaps are going to be positionable. It does look like it would be fairly simple to cut that out and then kind of position them yourself, but I mean, it does look very nice. We even have some notches on the trailing edges of the flaps as well. So again, nice attention to detail, a level of detail on these wings. Alright, up next we have the center section of the lower wing right here. Again, as you can see, the level, the rivet detail, panel line detail, everything absolutely top notch, amazing stuff. You have the notches that go on the trailing edge of the flaps right here, and then all that going on, just absolutely amazing. Then on the reverse side, nothing is flat. You're not going to see anything because you have the section with your landing gear wells going on right there. Alright, and then up next we have individually wrapped in our bubble wrap right here, our fuselage halves. And let's pull these out. And I'm sure this level of detail compared to what the wings is going to be is just, like I said, absolutely amazing. The rivets, they do seem a little bit shallow, and you do lose a little bit going around the edges here, but I mean, that's really the only complaint I have so far. We do have a little bit of a, maybe a sink, can't tell on that, but we have some nice raised detail on there. The panel lines do feel okay, and like I said, the rivets on the back end right here, they do seem a little bit shallow, but luckily this is not an area that you're going to be sanding right here, so not really 100% worried about losing that detail. But going on to this top right here, we're definitely going to need to re-rivet that because that is very shallow on that. Then we have the other side right here, same deal, amazing rivet detail all the way through, and panel line detail, everything. The strengtheners on the tail right here just looks very nice, and the raised detail, recessed detail mixed in, again, very nice. Now on the reverse side, no detail on the inside on either of them because you're going to have that 3D printed cockpit that's just going to blow everybody away when it is all said and done. Alright, now we have our horizontal stabilizers right back here. Again, same level rivet detail, panel line detail, everything's looking very nice on that. Alright, and then we have this nice packing right here to separate the wings. And I'm only going to pull out one of these, but you can see the panel line and rivet detail on here. When you get this painted and weathered and washed on here, all that showing up, that is going to be absolutely beautiful when it is all said and done. I mean, just the level of detail that's on here. I cannot wait to see all of this painted up and weathered. Alright, and then lastly we have our clear parts. Clear parts, we do have two different options for the back canopy section right here, as you can see. Then we have a couple other clear pieces. This is for our top. And again, two different options for that. Those do look very nice, and our front piece right here, again, very nice indeed for those. And our navigation lights, no issues. Not sure what these are for. We'll have to find out when we build it. Alright, so that's it for the Airscale Pro Hawker Typhoon Mk.1B in 1/32. And this is their second full kit. Their first one was the Paul Defiant, which is another one that's on my wish list to get, which I'm hoping to get here in the near future. But this kit right here, absolutely amazing. The level of detail that's in all the 3D printed parts look absolutely amazing. The fuselage and the wings, the rivet detail on the wings, all the flat surfaces is absolutely spectacular. The one thing is about the fuselage, yes, the rivets do look a little bit shallow, especially around the curves, but that's something that happens with all, it feels like all injection molding right there. So that's kind of a par for the core. Should be a good starting point to just go through with your riveter real quick, re-rivet those, make them a little bit deeper so that way when you sand down the seam lines, you don't lose all the detail. But yeah, I really don't have much negative to say about this kit. I'm really excited about it. The only real negative that I have was from the instructions about some of the pictures being fairly small and being kind of hard to read. But is that really a negative? This is a simple fix. Get some glasses or your optivisor out or a magnifying glass and you can see it and fix that problem. That's, I mean, it's a problem, but it's not a problem. That's me being nitpicky on that. The instruction booklet, the paper, the quality, everything, the reference photos all look very nice and should really be helpful when building this kit. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting into this one, and we'll have to see when I get into it. The way I do everything is I have all my models on a spreadsheet, and it comes down to I have a random selector that I go 1 through 140 or 1 through 200 or whatever. It generates a number, say 45, and I go to number 45 on the spreadsheet, and that's the model that I do. So I'm hoping this one comes up in the random generator fairly quickly. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're interested in getting this kit, I know it's at airscale.co.uk, I believe is the website. I'll double check that and put the actual website down in the description of this. If you're interested in getting this kit or the Paul Defiant, which I believe is still available, you can get those online, or I'm not sure if any of the other manufacturers or retailers like Hannets or Sprue Brothers or any of those are going to have this kit. But if they do, I'm pretty sure it's going to sell out pretty quickly. So if you can get your hands on this kit, if you're interested on it, I highly recommend it. It is a fairly pricey kit, but as you can see, all the detail parts that you get for it, you're paying for high quality right there. And that's the thing about 3D printed models is, yes, they are a little bit more pricey, sometimes a lot more pricey, but the level of detail that you're paying for, you're getting straight up out of the box. You're not having to go and buy aftermarket set after aftermarket set and just to add in that level of detail. So that's all I have to say about this kit. I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review. I hope if you're kind of on the fence about getting this kit, I hope this one helped you make your decision. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell button for notifications of when I post future videos. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. You stay frosty and happy modeling.